Welcome back to the channel, guys. Drew here, and I hate lockboxes. And I'm going to give you 3 workaround solutions to lockboxes. And if none of them work for you, I'll give you at the very end the very creative way that another host has shared with me on really the best way to use a lockbox if there's no other way to do it. Let's talk about it. Let's dive in. Alright guys, I really don't like lockboxes, but lockboxes have been around since the beginning of Turo. And for many hosts, it's a necessary evil. It's either you use a lockbox or you literally have to rearrange your whole life to fit the schedule of different guests that decide to be late consistently or never able to be there exactly the time when they're supposed to be scheduled. So you use lockboxes because it allows remote access and remote check-ins. And of course, if you're going to scale your Turo business, you need to be able to do remote check-ins for a good portion of your rentals. Okay? So, but today I want to talk about how to get around not using lockboxes. And I hate them. They're clunky. The codes are annoying. You constantly have to change the codes if you want to keep things somewhat secure. And guests never put them back on time. But the biggest problem is if you're using lockboxes on your cars and your cars are out in the public, whether it's at an airport or on the street or anywhere else, it's literally a big flashing sign saying that this car is a rental and or this car is not, something's different about this. And a lot of times it really tells bad people that there's a key in here to this car. And that's the big reason I don't like them. And there's a lot of problems with them. So how to get around not using lockboxes. I'm going to give you 3 different ways. Hopefully they'll work for 90% of the time. And there's some pros and cons. There's a little bit of risk associated, but I think you can work around it. Number 1, the easiest way, Turo Go, which is a pretty cool thing that Turo's kicked off in several different areas. It's new to my area. I haven't tried it out yet, but I do have some other hosts that I've talked to and really like it. And I hope to try it out soon and tell you about it. But Turo Go uses app access from the manufacturer. And you can use that as well. And basically it allows, it's mostly for newer vehicles, okay? And most GM vehicles, 2016 and up, uses an OnStar system, which allows you to remote access, remote unlock the car, remote lock up the car, and you can literally just leave the key inside the vehicle with the OnStar platform, even if it's a key fob, and you can lock it remotely, unlock it remotely, check in, and it's pretty good. Now, the negative to the OnStar system is recently, within the last 18 months, they started charging you monthly for it. That's not fun to have an extra charge, and if you have multiple GM vehicles, that can add up, okay? But a lot of the other app manufacturers, if you're looking at, there's Toyota Engage, there's Hyundai Blue Link, there is Tesla app, obviously a very advanced app with a lot of extra features. Ford Pass, practically every manufacturer now is using an app that allows you to remotely unlock the vehicle and remotely lock the vehicle up, and along with a lot of other features that come with it. In fact, many newer vehicles that have the app access, a lot of times you don't even need a GPS tracker because it gives you location access and a lot of different things that come, not everything, but most of the things that come with a GPS tracker. So what I would recommend is, it may not be feasible to totally change your fleet. Obviously, many of you have older cars that don't have that type of access. But anytime you're upgrading your fleet, I would only purchase new vehicles that have the app access because it really is a game changer, and you'll never have to deal with lockboxes again. So, and if you're going to eventually try out if Turo Go comes through your area, you're going to need app access, and they have certain manufacturers that are approved that their app is consistently works well enough to where it's approved for their platform. Okay, but there is another option, and number 2 is using a Faraday bag. And a Faraday bag is it's a little cloth bag that you put the key in it, and it shields the signal from going out to the car to be able to unlock the doors on the car. The simple way is you just put the key in the Faraday bag and you leave it inside. The most common spot is inside the gas cap, inside where the gas cap is, and the key and the bag fits in there. And you can still lock up the car on most manufacturers. The customer can't unlock the vehicle until you tell them where the key's at. Okay. Look, I will actually, I've done this for many of my fleet, even without the Faraday bag. You don't necessarily need a Faraday bag. You just, instead of leaving the key in a lockbox, visible on the window where all the world can see, you take the key and you put it inside the, where the gas cap is, out of view, and the client doesn't know where you keep the key until you tell them where it is. And so, I used it at the airport. But I've never had an issue. I've done hundreds and hundreds of rentals this way. It's very convenient for the guests. The key's always there. It's easy to find. You literally can't, there's no mix-ups. Now, there's a couple things that I would highly, highly recommend if you're going to use this method. And that is, one is I would recommend having a GPS tracker in the vehicle if you're going to leave the vehicle, somewhere like that. And that is because if for some reason, most likely not just a stranger, but most likely a previous renter knows that where you keep keeps the key, and he may come and pick up the vehicle, not likely at an airport, but if it's at your house and you use this method, which I do. Fortunately for me, I have camera systems, and that helps a little bit. But if you're using this method at your house or where you keep the cars, and a previous renter, knows that and maybe comes back and tries to steal a car, what you can do with the GPS, you need a GPS tracker, that's important. But number two, you need a GPS tracker that has geofencing. And what that does is it gives you a notification anytime the car leaves or comes back to the area that you've circled. And so what can happen is if you have a key in the car and somebody takes the car, immediately you get a notification, and then you also have the tracker to where you can track down the car. The third thing that I would do if I was using this method of leaving the key somewhere is I try to leave the key the minimum amount of time possible. So usually it's maybe a couple hours before the rental takes off. I'll put the key in the mailbox, I'll put the key in the gas cap, and then when the car returns, I try to pick up the key as quickly as possible within a couple hours usually. So I don't leave the cars out there all the time with keys in the area. And so look, there's always risks and rewards. I would much rather use this and take the risks as far as that is associated with that than the risk of a lockbox. And a lot of people who use lockboxes, they keep their keys in there all the time. I've read the stories. I've heard, people coming in, shattering, smashing the lockboxes, taking the keys, trying to steal vehicles. I think there's more risks associated with that. Breaking windows if the lockbox is on your window and trying to get into the car and so forth. I think there's more risks with that than my method, but you suit what suits for you. Number three, and lastly, if you are maximizing your ROI by having a whole fleet of hoopties and you got all older cash cars and no remote access, not modern conveniences that many of the larger hosts are used to, then instead of a lockbox, why not use the old school magnetic key box? And if you got the old keys that you just turn the ignition and it's not a large key fob, for a few of my fleets way back when, I would use the magnetic key box. And even at the airport, I put the key in the magnetic box. You put it right on the bottom of the car. But if none of those physically work for you, for whatever reason, there is a method that I've seen some really, really good hosts came up with. And what he does is he takes a sheet of aluminum and he drills 2 holes in it and he hooks it to the back of the license plate. And so that metal piece goes behind the license plate. It's drilled in, so it's there in place. And then he puts the lockbox next to the license plate, hooked onto that metal piece that's secured to the vehicle. Well, some people, if they're worried about people taking off the tags and the lockbox that way, you can use a little security bolts that secure the license plate to it. And I really like that method because it solves, if you're going to use a lockbox, it solves a lot of the problems with the lockbox, which is that, the visibility of it. So if you have the lockbox attached on the rear plate, Okay, it's easy for you to back the vehicle in, and it's not visible on the windows, it's not visible on the car unless you really crawl around the car, and it's just not a place that people are going to look or notice. So I really like that part of it. Secondly, you don't have to worry about the guests trying to making sure they put the lockbox back where it's supposed to go. And you know, I've seen people driving the cars with the lockbox attached to the glass window, banging around. You know, the guests not putting the lockbox back, or misplacing it, or locking the keys in the car. All the different messes that happens with lockboxes. And if it's already secured and to that rear plate by using a metal behind it, I'll try to include some pictures on it. It solves a lot of the problems, and I know very, very successful hosts that have a lot of cars use this method. And really, in my opinion, that's the only way to use a lockbox. And so, hopefully, this is helpful, guys. Hopefully, I've given you some alternatives. If you think that my methods are way too risky, put it in the comments. Tell me what you do. Tell me, all you pro lockboxers out there, tell me why you use them, why you like them, and what the benefit is. Until next time, guys, I'm out. Thanks for tuning in.